keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Namaste to you, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Monday, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Lall Show on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. As promised, since last Friday, we encourage you to make it your special effort to join us this evening on the Lall Show, because we have lots to share with you, and we want you to take in as much as possible, and of course, we encourage you to call your friends and tell your friends and let them know that we really have what they call a special edition of the Lall Show this evening. So I won't take up much time, but it is 99.1 and 99.5 FM. And without further ado, I hand things over to the man of the moment, Mr. Lall, all decked in red. It is your floor this evening, sir.
Red and blue. You're leaving out the blue. Joshua, thank you.
You're welcome.
And namaste. I'll give you a line of beautiful words.
Go ahead.
Worries, tension, and stress is like birds. We can't stop them from flying near us, but we can certainly stop them from making a nest in our minds. Should I repeat?
Yes, please.
Worries, tension, and stress is like birds. We can't stop them from flying near us, but we can certainly stop them from making a nest in our minds. I hope you guys had a lovely weekend, because I did. Had no stress, no worries, no tension, but love in it. Like Josh said, it's a packed program tonight. We are all in great danger, and time is running out on us. Yes, time is running out on us. So let me say namaste again. And let me give you a quick intro with a very simple example as to what tonight's program is all about. Joshua?
Yes, sir.
If you put up a 10-story building, it is required by law that a contractor meet with all the neighbors, everybody in the surrounding neighborhood, and tell them all the good things and bad things that they can look out for during the project. It is also required by law, Joshua, that the owners and the contractors have full insurance in the event of damages done to the neighbors' properties, or if the building collapses. That's why the owners are required full insurance. In the oil industry, Josh, is a little more different, but it means it's about the same thing. Every oil project, ExxonMobil them putting together, they have to hold public meetings with all of Guyana to tell us the damage these projects will have on our environment and the financial benefits for us today and future generations. All this information has to be well documented in an EIA, which means Environmental Impact Assessment. Uncle and Auntie, namaste. That EIA, uncle, is required by law, and we must have full cover insurance to cover all damages this project do to us. You should know that ExxonMobil and their partners handed our government a donkey cart insurance for Guyana on Liza 1, 2, and the Payara project, Liza 3. Now they want to do the same with the fourth project. You guys remember, I told you I was the only Guyanese that attended the EIA meeting they held at Umanayana for the Payara project.
Yep.
And I was very upset. You remember that, Josh?
Yes, I did.
They held a few other meetings in some of the regions. Not all the regions, Josh. Not all the main cities. In some fine places where people doesn't understand anything about an EIA. In short, ExxonMobil hoodwink the entire Guyana on these 3 projects. And they want to rub pepper in our eyes now on the 4th project. I did ask ExxonMobil and the EPA for a recording of the Payara meetings. And you know what I said to me, Josh? They didn't tape it. How rude and disrespectful they can be to us as a people. Holding public consultations with the people of this country and telling us they don't have the recordings. It's just that they didn't want to give me Guyana. They didn't want me to get hold of it. But the 4th project and passed that way. We have them all recorded. Yes. The 4th project, Yellowtail, Uncle and Auntie, is on stream. They hand us 7,400 pages of highly technical information to study in 10 days before the first public consultation. ExxonMobil, the EPA, advertised meetings in places the other day and changed the venue the day before.
Last minute.
Exactly, last minute. That's how they do public consultations with the citizens of this country. You understand what is going on? EPA and what the EPA doing in this country on our oil projects, Uncle. Man, this thing is not an insult to us. It's a total disregard and disrespect for the citizens of this country and all our leaders, Uncle, gone out to breakfast,
Silent.
sleeping in the hotels with them. Eating the food. But I must say, I must tell you this, Josh. Since myself and my staff, Kiana Wilberg, began these radio programs, a lot has been changed. Every moment of the day, things are changing. What they didn't discuss in the Payara meetings was discussed in this 4th project. They talked about the fishing industry extensively. They talked about the waste disposal, mammals, birds, destruction of Guyana. Most of the things I have been talking about on these programs, Uncle, like flaring, the ballast water, the produced water, and a whole host of things they have addressed in this 4th project. They never spoke about these things before during LISA 1, 2, and the Payara consultations. So we are getting somewhere, Miss Harris. Get me? We're getting somewhere and I can smile. But the way they address it, Miss Harris, is not pulling a blanket over the eyes. Is rubbing salt and pepper in the wounds that we already have from those 3 projects. Many nights on these programs, I talked about the advice oil experts and environmentalists giving Guyana. Not true, Josh? Many nights I talked about that. Many nights I talked about how these people warning Guyana of the dangers we face ahead with these oil gangsters, not the sectors, these gangsters. Tonight, I want you guys to listen keenly how these international environmentalists dealt with ExxonMobil, our EPA, and the private company that ExxonMobil hired to do the EIA. Joshua?
Yes, sir.
Honestly, after listening to last Thursday's Zoom meeting, I felt like a school kid as to the understanding of the issues at hand. I told you guys many times, this oil industry is not large, it's not huge, it's gigantic. It takes 30, 40 years to understand what is going on. So please listen to the first champion out of Trinidad and Tobago, a man named Gary Aboud. He is the founding member of the Trinidad and Tobago Fishermen and Friends of the Sea organization. Guys, could you please play that first tape?
My name is Gary Aboud. I'm from the
Hi, Gary.
Fishermen and Friends of the Sea in Trinidad. We have been incorporated for 21 years, but we've existed for 27. I see there's a very eminent list of professionals. It's really important that we, as participants, recognize that we perhaps have reviewed a small quantity of EIAs, and those we have reviewed in a public interest capacity. The professionals who are presenting today, with no disrespect intended, are skilled and trained in managing public consultations, of which we are not, and they are skilled and trained in tiptoeing through EIAs to produce masterful documents that often skirt the real and critical issues. The previous questions and speakers have outlined those issues, but with no disrespect, I find it very offensive sometimes, because we have attended probably about 50 public consultations from the energy sector over the past 25 years, and it's very difficult. Most times, we would speak at the end because we would want to hear all of the other speakers. I hope we are at the end. And most times they would attempt to stop us from speaking because the audience becomes upset. The audience becomes upset and enraged. Oftentimes these are communities whose livelihoods depend on the success or safety of the project. In this instance, we are, I believe, a Caribbean audience who are concerned. So when we speak and someone spoke about oil spills, and a question was asked in the first questioner about when spills occur, and in the response, the party who responded says, no, it's if, and we have great facilities and capacities to prevent it from ever occurring. I want to state on record a strong objection to hoodwinking the question about preparedness for when they occur, because I am not aware of a single oil company on the planet who have not had accidents and spills. So the preparatory planning and the EIA cannot hoodwink the concerns that we are raising. In Trinidad, we probably have the world record for an island with not many installations, but quite a few. We have a reported excess of 100 spills per year. So when the professional on the panel chats to us and no disrespect, real nonsense to say that, no, we are well prepared, we won't have any. I wish I could put his daughter's life on the line with that promise, because he wouldn't, because accidents occur. So my questions are based on the fact that accidents occur. And I don't want no professional with a wonderful accent and a long list of professional accreditations to tell me, no, we're prepared, it won't occur. Because history proves otherwise. Diana spoke about the impact on Jamaica and on other regions, Santo Domingo, etc. Well, these are very real, extremely real, and will occur and are occurring already. On the east coast of Trinidad, we have a crisis where our government agreed to do testing according to the convention, not the Basel Convention, the Mini Matter Convention, of which we are not signatories, and I'm certain Guyana is not a signatory, but the Mini Matter Convention requires the testing of fish for heavy metals and other contaminants, because fish migrate, they're exported and sold overseas. And on our east coast of Trinidad, where they were testing specifically for mercury, they found that the fish, 5 of the 16 commercial fish that are sold in Trinidad, contain mercury at 5 times higher than the World Health limit for the consumption of fish. The government in Trinidad specifically and deliberately covered up that report. We have copies of it, and we'll be happy to furnish it to anyone who so desires to view it. But what we could not understand, and what we are disturbed about, is why would the government deliberately smother a report that exposes the risk to public health of contamination that may have occurred in Trinidad or may be partially responsible for the waters that come from the Orinoco and from other areas where Guyana and Guyanese are using mercury in the oil extractor, in the gold extraction. So there is a history of cover-up in the Caribbean. And if you would like, and anyone, the EIA preparers would like me to prepare and to send for you instances of 12 such cover-ups, we would prepare and send for you. What we are seeing in Trinidad is that for us to accept and endorse and welcome you into our territory of the Caribbean region, you need to respond to our questions and don't hoodwink us and tell us, no, we are prepared. So my questions are the following. I would like the EIA to include a listing of the emergency response preparedness training for Guyanese nationals and for professionals working in that industry and with this company. Secondly, we would like to see included in the EIA the list and cost and dates of the arrival of the emergency response preparedness equipment, recognizing that this equipment, as we saw with the Horizon spill, was woefully inadequate, and requiring and requesting that before any approval is granted in our waters, in our fishery, in our tourism sector, of which we depend on, that we need to know exactly what is the emergency response training preparedness and equipment preparedness. Secondly, in Trinidad, although we have, and I don't mean this with any arrogance, because we do in fact have, next to Belize, the most evolved environmental management legislation, which is very stringent and which fails because it exists on paper and the implementing regulatory agencies are manipulated and bullied. In Guyana, it's a lot worse. So I'm asking, specifically, can the EIA point out what is the legislation for the cradle-to-grave management of waste generated by these platforms? What is the cradle-to-the-grave statement on how it will manage its drill fluids and cuttings, which are 100 and 200 miles offshore. We have to depend on the integrity of the regulatory agencies and the ministers of Guyana, which I don't have any confidence in, with no disrespect, because of our experiences of manipulation in Trinidad. But I want to see what is the legislation, and I want it to be included in the EIA, and I would like a commitment in writing in the EIA by the company itself, because we will, unfortunately, I know everybody loves their family and their wives, but they don't love us, and they definitely don't love me. So we are willing to litigate if the promises are not written and fair in the first instance to stop the capacity of this approval because of an endangerment of the Caribbean territory, and in the second instance to claim for damages if they fail to commit to their promises in the EIA. And if you don't, then some of us are willing to go the distance to ensure that this project does not continue, and that if it continues, it must only continue with the direction and discretion as approved by the court. And I'm not even sure which court would have jurisdiction, but I think it would be international court.
All right, Mr.
Finally, when we
Gary?
speak about insurance, many of the speakers spoke about insurance, but I would like to see whether there's trans-regional insurance to cover for the tourism sector. I think that's critically important for the fishery sector, of which in Trinidad we have 50,000 dependents. And thirdly, for biodiversity loss. I've never heard of an insurance that could cover for biodiversity loss. And particularly, and additionally, I would like to see in the EIA what policy is specifically in place for transnational waste when it crosses borders. Additionally, in Trinidad, 2 years ago, we had a oil well blowout that cost us hundreds of thousands of US dollars to repair, and in which one person lost their life. The problem is that blowout occurred 42 years after the well was abandoned, and there were no copies of the well infrastructure. So the team that went in to cap the well had no documentation to determine what was there. So when you spoke in the presentation that 100 and 200 years from now, I really had to smile, because you are so correct. 102 years from now, your shareholders and you would be long gone, happily enjoying the benefits of the extraction. But we are left with the responsibility. So I would like to see in the EIA what is the long-term bond or emergency response capacity, and who bears the cost for accidents that occur long after the well has been decommissioned. Finally, we sit on the Extractive Industries Transparency Institute, where we have served in Trinidad. I'm unaware that Guyana has a similar facility, but it should. It should. And although the EITI does not go the full distance in the determination of all of the impacts, Guyana does have the EITI, but there is...
I'm very sorry to disturb you, but please remember that we have other persons who would like to contribute to the discussion.
My last 6 words is, unless the Guyanese population are fully aware of the comparative value for volume that Guyana is achieving from this extraction, then they should put their full force to demanding contract transparency and a clear analysis that Guyana is being given a fair share in royalty. As you may know, even the IMF complained that the royalty rates agreed by this company were extremely low compared to the world value paid in royalties for volume, because these are not renewable resources, and we risk our ecosystems, our health, our heritage, our vulnerable communities, and endangered species in order for this extraction to occur. So, the least we should have is a full understanding that Guyana is earning in its contracts a value that is comparable to Alaska, to East Timor, etc. Thank you for allowing me. And thank you also for hurrying me off. It follows the tradition I spoke of in the beginning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gary. So there were some recommendations as well as questions, very pertinent indeed. I'll allow the consultant team to respond to those, and we can come back to you if you have additional questions before the session closes.
Yeah, this is Todd Hall. I heard a couple of questions that I wrote down that I want to respond to quickly, and thank you for the questions, by the way. You asked about a list of emergency response training and equipment. The oil spill response plan that I referenced does include that information. It discusses training. It discusses the specific pieces of equipment that are available, the specific regional third parties with which EEPGL has existing established contracts that they can draw on if needed, depending on the level of response needed. So there's a lot of very detailed information. I would encourage you to have a look at that, and if there's any additional information, additional questions that you have, happy to discuss that. But that information is in the oil spill response plan. You also asked about waste, and we didn't get into this detail, so I wanted to provide an additional level of granularity there. You actually used the perfect word, the cradle to grave analysis. There is actually a cradle to grave analysis study that the EPA has required EEPGL to prepare. That's a relatively recent document that goes through all of the waste involved with the program and how it is managed, from the very beginning to the very end. That particular study fed into what is referred to as a comprehensive waste management plan, which is an affiliate level. So in other words, it covers not just the Yellowtail project, but all of EEPGL's activities in country, a waste management plan that takes into consideration the results of that cradle to grave analysis study and prepares a detailed plan for how waste will be managed for all of EEPGL's activities in country. So I hope that information addresses the questions and the comments you had on those two topics. But again, happy to go into more detail.
Joshua?
Yes, sir.
Auntie and uncle, I love Gary Aboud.
Yeah, he's good.
Like him, I have no faith in any of our government people or opposition. And as for the oil people, just the same way they don't like Gary Aboud, they wouldn't like Lall. You listen to the gentleman out of Trinidad, what he said. The amount of questions he asked there, he put forward there. You listen keenly how the oil people, what they responded to. They didn't respond to important questions like insurance. They didn't respond to the impact this oil sector will have on the region. They didn't respond to the 2%, the lowest in the world. None of the questions these people really answered there. And there's so much to come out here, Uncle and Auntie. I think I have to take a month and give you guys it. The man said in Trinidad they were hiding, the TT government was trying to hide the reports, but they were able to grasp it. And they have it in their hands. Guyana, despite every fisherman complaining of not catching half of the fish. And fishing plants are closing down, putting up for sale. The EPA and our government, along with ExxonMobil, is playing this thing down. ExxonMobil exact words in the EIA project document. Let me read it for you, right, so you get it clearly. They said the impact of the fishing industry is minor and negligible. That's the same thing they cut and paste from Lisa 1, 2, 3, and I put them in 4. Mr. Gary of Trinidad said, accidents occur, and I don't want no professional with a wonderful accent and a long list of professional accreditations to tell me no. We are prepared. It wouldn't occur because history says otherwise, and it has proven in Trinidad and Tobago, because they have been witnessing over 100 spills per year. Miss Harris?
Yes, sir.
Help me, man. Help me quickly, I'm tired.
Like the man said, Mr. Abood, he said he was offended because they kept skirting around the important and critical issues that they were asked to address. We don't want to be referred to a document when we ask you, as the representative from a company, what is the plan? They said they made reference to the oil spill management plan, which is meant to be headed up by the Civil Defense Commission. Today we spent quite some time trying to find out how much money in the recent budget had been allocated to the Civil Defense Commission. The Civil Defense Commission isn't even in the budget. So we want to know, as Guyanese, this body that doesn't even have proper staff, proper equipment, proper training, and that apparently doesn't even have any money allocated to them in the budget, what are they capable of doing? And who are they capable of helping? So if these regulatory bodies like the Marine Police, MARAD, the GDF, the CDC, the EPA, if they don't have the staff, the resources, the training, the strategic planning to do any of these things that are barely passable on paper, let alone in reality, what should we rely upon them to do?
Nothing.
Nothing. And it's clear from the responses that they gave during that consultation that even they do not know what they're supposed to do.
He asked to see the equipment that they brought in for this quick response.
Yes.
I'm waiting. All these answers.
We're
all these
waiting.
questions have to be answered. Guys, I want you to listen to a lady named Simone Mangal, a Guyanese by birth living in Canada, who is now an international environmentalist. This lady is a lady of my heart. Please play her. Let the Guyanese people listen what her contribution.
I have two main points I wish to raise, but before that, on the matter of process, there were a few, I thought, very relevant questions asked that have not been answered as yet, and I would be grateful if the team would respond to these questions. One of them is, if there were, in the event of an oil spill, one had to clean up, where would you be disposing the material that you clean up? Precisely. Exactly what's the plan? So that hasn't been answered. Dr. Bulkan asked about the methodology for arriving at the ranking that you did for your risk assessment, and she was referred to sections of the report rather than provided with the scientific rigor that went into coming up with that ranking system. And I think this is the crux of an EIA, so it's something that must be addressed. I have read it, and I myself cannot see where the scientific rigor is. So I would like to ask the team to come back to that as well. The issue that Mr. Belay raised, which concerned the monitoring that has been done, on existing production areas. I would have to say, Mr. Kamaraj Prasad, I don't agree that this should be disassociated. And the reason I think it's relevant and reasonable is because when you look at the EIA, so it's the same applicant and previous EIAs have been done by the same firm, without that monitoring information, we have no way of looking at the credibility of the assumptions that were made. And we're being asked to accept this second study on the basis of very similar assumptions. So the question is, we have been given a ranking system before, and we must know what did the impacts actually look like compared to what the EIA said they would look like. And I'm particularly troubled that Mr. Belay has had such a runaround to get information, and I don't believe this is a one-on-one issue. This concerns all of us. It's a public matter. It should not be something that Mr. Belay has to come to the EPA for. It is a matter that needs to be available to the public and answered as part of this EIA process. And part of the issue here that concerns me is that it does speak a bit to the credibility of the applicant, the credibility of the EPA, which is in your charge, when people have to run around to get information, and that's worrisome. So you're adding a burden of trust or distrust on top of this present EIA system when that sort of stuff is not properly available. I also feel that the question on cost and benefits has not been addressed. So when I read this EIA, what strikes me is that there's a very prejudicial description of benefits without a robust description of costs. And if you're going to go there, you have to do both. You can't just be highlighting jobs and benefits here, because those are very easy things for people to understand. But it's a lot harder to understand for every barrel of oil that you advertised in that beautiful full-page ad that was in the newspaper. And I believe Danuta Radzik asked, for the public to truly grasp what we are dealing with. For every barrel of oil, per day, per month, for 20 years of the life of this project, what are the toxins that are coming out into our water, our air, coming to land, the chemicals that are being used. I think that when you are doing ads like that, you must be prepared to be transparent. So every time you put an ad in our newspaper, during an EIA process, let us not separate these two things, because we are supposed to be coming to an objective forum, but a nice glossy advertisement undermines that objectivity. It's pretty, it's appealing. It can lead us to move beyond thinking quite deeply about what we're engaging. So the next time you do this ad, or you're running an EIA consultative process and you're moved to do an ad, please ensure that the ad is not a half-truth. It's the complete truth. And that truth is not well represented in this EIA. Yes, there are pieces you can go and you can see the tables, but it would be very helpful for you to put it in the public summary and in the summary of the EIA very upfront. This is really what we're dealing with. So that's about process. In terms of content, I have one comment, but before I go there, there's one thing that I believe is quite disturbing. The EIA document introduction, page 11, says that the study is produced by an independent body, and in fact the Environmental Protection Act requires this. However, it is co-signed by Mr. Sham Nokta, who, as you are aware, is an elected official of the governing party that here in government. He was on the party's list of candidates for the 2020 general and regional elections. As far as we in Guyana know, we have elected this party with Mr. Nokta on a list to govern Guyana. How is it that this can be an independent EIA when there is a clear link to the power, the highest level of power in the governing party? I don't see a declaration of conflict of interest anywhere in the EIA. I've searched it, so please correct me if I'm wrong. There's no declaration, there's no explanation of how such a conflict was addressed in the production of the work. So the question is this: can this EIA qualify as independent? And can the EPA be considered as acting independently of the government, the administration, that supervises it directly from the office of the president when it comes to assessing and approving this EIA, co-prepared by, publicly signed for, by an elected official of that government? This is a very pertinent issue. It's very relevant. It's not about Guyana's politics. It's about the act. What is the requirement of the Environmental Protection Act? So that's my comments on process. I now want to address, I'd like to affirm what many people said before, but I'd like to address one matter which I really was quite disappointed to see in the EIA. And I'm disappointed because I am aware that ExxonMobil a few years ago gave $10 million to a Washington-based NGO with an office in Guyana, Conservation International. And the intent of that was to support environmental management and, the works. It fell through eventually. Conservation International withdrew because of Exxon's record, where it has continued to flare, despite the fact that it's breaching its contract. But when I went to the annex of the EIA report, I was flummoxed by what I found. I have not actually engaged these EIA processes before in Guyana. The first time was in July, when you had the gas to shore meeting. There is a fisheries study there. It has no comprehensive mapping of the fish nurseries in Guyana or in neighboring countries that might be feeding our fishery sector. There are no indications whatsoever in any baseline study done, including the marine baseline study done, of what the migratory patterns are of commercial or non-commercial fish compared to that whole zone, the mud that extends all the way to northern Brazil. There is no description, material or financial, of the fisheries value chain. There is no quantification of the economic value, direct economic financial value, both in terms of its contribution to the economy and to the subsistence economy. There is no quantification of the socioeconomic value of that industry in terms of livelihood, family dependency, or the importance of fish consumption to the people of Guyana. There is no information on any chemical testing of fish. No baseline data had ever been collected before you began to use extensive seismic surveys offshore of Guyana. Extensive. And continue to do so, and you continue to drill. So, in fact, there is absolutely no baseline data whatsoever for the most elementary thing that one could be possibly socially responsible about, which is fishing. ESSO has been conducting, and in this EIA you're talking about 4D surveys, which means this stuff is going on over time. So we're in a situation where our regulatory authority under the previous administration permitted this to occur, and our regulatory authority under the present administration is continuing with this. This is really, you cannot submit an EIA where you have failed to treat with fisheries, with nurseries, with migratory patterns, with catch per unit effort, how that has changed over time comprehensively. Not a study of Region 6, one guy in Region 2, one guy in Region 4. You have the resources to do this. You could have given it to Conservation International. You could have hired a firm to do it for Guyana. And I think that you have not done well. You have not done good by the fishery sector of our country. And they have an incredibly important role to play in the life of Guyana, both in terms of all of the downstream value that comes from them, but also the subsistence value of fisheries in an incredibly impoverished environment. And so I would like to know where you're going to go now in terms of addressing this huge deficiency in this EIA and in all of the work that's been done in the oil industry, because you have no baseline. So today our fishers are not getting fish, and you're in a position where you don't have to be held accountable or responsible. And that doesn't help your credibility. one of the biggest issues we have here is the credibility of the applicant. An applicant who has breached its contract and continues to flare gas. An applicant who refused to tell me in the Gas to Shore EIA consultation what the price of gas was. But I know it now because you are paying us $45 per equivalent ton of carbon dioxide to dump this toxic material in our airspace, in the Caribbean airspace. So it's minus $45. But you're coming to us with another project that's in there for EIA approval, in which you are presumably going to be charging the country for a stranded asset that is no value to you whatsoever. It's a dump. It's a dump product. So there is a credibility issue here, and it comes back to this point I made earlier, where you cannot come away in the EIA from looking at the monitoring and what effects that monitoring has showed has been happening on outside of offshore of Guyana, but also onshore of Guyana. And I want to know from ERM and from ExxonMobil and from the EPA what you're going to be doing to address the fishery situation right now. Thank you.
Full. That's the entire ExxonMobil mouthful. Ms. Harris? Oh my gosh.
I don't even know where to
When I
start.
listen to these people, you know, they really understand
Exactly.
what we are dealing with. They understand the danger
Yes.
that Guyana face.
And they've been reading between the lines too.
Yes, they understand. You know, she said there just now, when we ask questions, the EPA head telling us we have to go to them for an answer.
Right.
Then what's the use of having these public consultations?
Exactly.
Huh? She said they're putting out whole page advertisements with half truths
Exactly.
inside. When I tell you people what these guys doing to us, some of you asking me, Glenn, these stories are truth. You heard the international experts talking there. Simone talked about financial reimbursement, compensation for damages done to us. She talked about paying the fishermen them and compensating us for the loss of our fish.
Yes.
And she said, there's a lot more I have to give you, so I don't want to talk too much. But she did say that the coalition government allowed ExxonMobil to do what they want, how they want, and now this present administration is allowing them to do even worse. Because we're talking about bigger money now. And now the things are becoming clear in front of our eyes. At least for Lisa 1 and 2, we never know all these things. But now it's beginning to be clear to us.
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yeah.
We have another video. We have, I think the whole week you guys are going to listen to these experts.
I think so.
Go ahead.
Well, it was really interesting when she spoke about the credibility of the company, and that's something that I think we often ignore. Yes, we sit here on this program and we discuss everything that Exxon does, and we look at the cost benefit analysis on everything that they do. That's something that they didn't put in their full page advert. They're telling us that we're going to get jobs and benefits and oil money, but what's the cost of that? What's the environmental cost? What's the cost of people's livelihoods, people's lives? What's the cost? And then it comes back to this issue again with transparency, with disclosure, with these regulatory bodies and agencies not doing what they're supposed to do and informing the public, keeping us up to date. So, you know, these people, they understand what's happening. They see it, and I'm glad that the public is able to hear it coming from other people, because they might think we're biased because we do this program, but it's refreshing to hear it come from professionals and experts who understand this sector and all the subtleties of it.
Thank you. Before I play this next video, I just want you guys to listen to her and what I have concluded in having listened 4.5 hours of Thursday night consultation, I have concluded that this is beyond gangsterism going on
Yes.
in Guyana for this entire region. So please listen carefully. Thank you. Play on the next tape for me.
Thanks again. So I wanted to come back in because I was a bit bemused that every person who has spoken tonight were indulged to respond and to have clarity on their questions, but you sort of moved on from me. Not that I was seeking to speak for a long time, but I do feel that it is very important this is a legal record of this EIA. As you know, once you embark on a consultation, whether it's legally required or not, it forms part of that process. And I don't know if it was Mr. Todd or Wiley who responded to my point about not having a baseline for the fisheries as a perceived lack of a baseline. And I want to say for the record and for the benefit of everyone else who is participating here tonight, that a baseline is something you collect before you attempt to do a project or an action that alters the conditions, such that if you were to come later, you would then be able to know how the conditions had changed. So the response you gave me troubles me, because you can't be continuously collecting a baseline when there are already activities going on offshore that are affecting those conditions. And so I am troubled because we are told that an independent, qualified consultant is hired to do this job. And if in fact something so elementary can slip by with such clear, you were very transparent about it, I am now afraid about what else has slipped by you, because you don't seem to understand what is the critical matter here. This is not an issue with fisheries about going on and doing studies. There has to be an immediate and urgent intervention. There has to be retrospective studies immediately to begin to look at catch per unit effort and how that has changed from the time you commenced operations back in 2015. And you are the first to speak about building on data. So we have to go back to the starting point and try to fill a gap, which is not the greatest way to do the job, but it's the only way to do the job. And I would like to say that for the record. I would also like it if, following from what Maya asked, if you could just describe for everyone here what kind of toxic waste comes to shore and how it is treated. And what I have noticed you say repeatedly, it's international standard, it's by these standards, but you don't actually name the standards. And when you speak of Guyana, you say Guyana's law. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that just before July, the Environmental Protection Agency of Guyana did the most inexplicable thing. Just before they started the Gas to Shore EIA, they suspended the 2020 guidelines for environmental impact assessment. And by their own record, they had gone into setting up these guidelines because the existing ones were woefully lacking for dealing with the oil and gas industry. In fact, a study done by K&M, which was one of the gas to shore studies, said that. It flagged it. It said it didn't have the regulatory framework to handle a project like that. Now you are here with another EIA, and I'm hearing everything but which international standard exactly are you using. I think this is very important, and we haven't heard. The EPA said that they were assiduously working to consult and get those EIAs back up. And Kemraj, it is November. So I think you've got something on your plate that's lagging. Now, back to the question of radioactive waste. For the record, I want to ask this because there are a number of facilities that are opening up and around the country in residential communities that are handling various radioactive substances. And Guyanese genuinely, this is very new to us. So we genuinely don't really know what's going on, and it would be very helpful if you can explain what that waste is, how it is treated to become non-hazardous, and then moved from wherever your treatment facilities are. So that would be very helpful tonight. But before going on, I want to draw your attention to the Environmental Protection Act and to what Maya was saying, Maya Trotz. You cannot cut off a piece of your project from an EIA. The Environmental Protection Act says it has to be the whole project. And so the EIA must consider all shore-based activities that make it possible for you to drill for that oil. Anything that you are doing that is essential, not auxiliary, essential to the functioning of what you're doing offshore is your project. And I do think there's a deficiency in the EIA right now. It doesn't really deal with that adequately. So I will stop there and ask you to explain to all of us, what is the toxic waste? What is its composition? What volumes come out per barrel of oil that you pump? And how is it treated and where does it go?
I'm struggling to figure out how to answer the question because there's a lot of detail behind that last one, right? So there is a detailed summary of the effluent discharge streams, as one of the previous commenters described in great detail, that includes the volumes, the quantities of both solid waste and liquid effluent waste. The waste management plan talks about the treatment methodologies. I don't think you're wanting us to read it on this call. But it is in the waste management plan. It is described in the project description what all of those streams are. But we're noting your comment, and if there's additional information that would be useful, we can work with the EPA to provide more clarity on that.
Yeah, I can also just very briefly, if I can address the baseline question specifically. I apologize. I thought I answered it, but if I didn't, I'll answer it now. So we, with specific reference to the fish issue and the marine biological issue, we had 2 years of baseline data for fish, and that was collected in 2 different ways. That was collected with what we call the biological fish study, which was conducted from 2017 to 2019. So it was 2 study years. It was 2 dry seasons and 2 wet seasons. It incorporated the full length of the EEZ, if you will, from the deep water environment in the block all the way to the estuaries. Okay. And that was done from late 2017 to early 2019, so 2 study years. And then we also collected the more fisheries-related data, so not the biological fish work, but the fisheries-related data also in 2 study years, and that report is included in the appendix. So we do have baseline data for multiple years for that particular receptor. And generally speaking, if you look at international best practice, it's generally accepted that when you have an environment that has a strong seasonal component to its environment, so a strong wet season and dry season, you at least collect 1 year of dry season data, 1 year of wet season data. If you can get 2, that's better, but the minimum kind of accepted practice is at least 1 year of baseline data, and that's accepted by a wide range of governments and also lending institutions. So we did meet that expectation.
No, you didn't. No, you did not.
Just to follow up, Jason, as well, on the radioactive piece, just making it clear that there is a waste management plan. There is the cradle to grave analysis that's on the EPA website as well. And radioactive sources, we don't just put them them into the landfill, they get treated, and the radioactive sources go back to the supplier. So we're not putting radioactive sources into the landfill.
Oh, you didn't.
Oh gosh, no you didn't. No you didn't. Miss Harris, we can't summarize.
She did such a wonderful job.
This thing will take several programs to summarize what the questions and the answers. But I'll give you a last piece from another champion, a woman by the name of Maya Trotz. Could you play her quickly? Let the Guyanese people listen.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. I have 5 questions, and they're really about boundaries or time geographical operations, and some follow up on questions that others have asked that you have not answered. So I'll just ask them individually and get the answers and then go on to the next. How do you present an ESIA when you're still collecting baseline data, as is the case of fisheries, as highlighted by Mrs. Simon Manville-Joly? First question, can we get an answer?
ERM?
Yeah, so we are still collecting data, that's true. And, as we've gone through the different EIAs for the different projects, we've built on a collection of data that we have. So that's one of the reasons why the EIAs keep getting larger, because we have more and more and more data that we include in each successive EIA. So when you say we're collecting baseline data, I mean the baseline that we use for each EIA is the sum total of the data that we have at the time that we write the EIA. That doesn't mean that we don't want more data for the next project, and that's why studies continue to be done.
How do you evaluate the impacts of your operations, including a spill, without consulting all communities that might potentially be impacted, including residents of other Caribbean nations?
Okay, well, I think we talked about that before, but I mean to reiterate, what I said, we've conducted the consultation within Guyana, because this is a project that is being prepared under Guyanese law, specifically the Environmental Protection Act.
But you agree, based on your modeling studies, that you can have potential impacts in other Caribbean nations?
Certainly we do, and that's why we have included the information that we have in the unplanned events chapter, and particularly the transboundary impacts portion of that chapter.
So that in terms of evaluating the social impacts, social and economic impacts on the assets in the other countries, that was not done with any on-the-ground analysis or speaking with anyone there?
We did do a validation exercise in Trinidad and Tobago for the LISA Phase 1 EIA, and we did.
Yeah, but we're not talking about LISA in this, right? We're talking about yellowtail, and you guys emphasized that earlier.
Yeah, that's true, but we have used baseline data that was collected for previous EIAs in many sections of the Yellowtail EIA to your initial point about using as much baseline data as is possible.
So you have not conducted any consultations for Yellowtail? Simple answer. Next question. How do you evaluate the impact of waste from your operation, including shore-based support services, when they will be dumped in a local landfill, or unless there's another option that you're including, for which the proper functioning is unclear? And more specifically, is that we have no water quality monitoring data, or air quality, or any other type of data that's being shared publicly for Hads-Bosch, say water quality from stormwater and leachate, which does eventually end up in the Demerara River. We have no idea how this facility performs under future climate scenarios, which models do predict will be underwater. And so questions in terms of the boundary of your waste management considerations, which in today's presentation you said were extremely good. And so do you take into consideration the end point, the grave point of where that waste is going, and what is the liability that you have hazardous waste coming into a facility that is potentially not being properly managed for hazardous waste.
I can speak to that, Dr. Trotz. This is Todd. So the landfill that is used for the project is an engineered, licensed, permitted landfill. I understand your perspective on that, but it is specifically selected by the project team because it is licensed by the regulatory
I'm sorry, is this the Hags-Bosch landfill?
It is.
Mm-hmm. So you are basing your assumption that it's licensed and operating according to whatever Guyanese standards are. Yet you're using standards for effluent quantities and all sorts of other stuff based on well, you know, EPA, US EPA and other types of regulation, of regulatory limits in other parts of your study. And so in terms of liability in that waste management process, if that landfill is failing or fails, and I'm not sure how you prove that that landfill is properly processing hazardous waste right now without access to data, is there liability for you putting hazardous waste there? I'm just trying to find out where liability falls when that facility does not function properly, and in terms of how much did you do to understand whether that facility is working properly and can actually take the waste that you're putting there.
Eric or Steve, I don't know if you want to speak to some of the waste assessments, waste infrastructure management assessments that have been done by the company. It might contribute to Dr. Trotz's question, answering Dr. Trotz's question.
I live a mile from the facility, so I'm pretty aware of its functioning and how it smells, and the absence of water quality monitoring data, and the fact that communities have moved closer and closer to the facility, so exposure is much greater than what may have been included in its design. I take it we can't answer that question. So next question, will your facility use shore-based services that require the use of radioactive materials? And if yes, how do you evaluate the impact of your activity in a country that is still undergoing training for managing a radioactive spill?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time, Dr. Trotz?
Will anything on the facility that you spoke of that's offshore, will any services be used on shore base that require the use of radioactive materials? Like, is anything coming onto that ship that uses shore-based services that use radioactive materials? And if yes, how do you evaluate the impact of your activity when Guyana is still undergoing training for how to manage a radioactive spill?
Okay, yeah, understood. Understood. I would like the company to respond to that when there is discussion of radioactive use of radioactive materials in the EIA. It's very limited, of course, but you know, there are very strict procedures in place for the management of those materials. I don't know, Steve Laws, if you want to respond to that briefly.
I think to answer your question of there are radioactive sources, I believe, in some of the multi-phase flow meters that are compiled or assembled with the well jumpers, which connect the well to the flow lines, and they are stored and installed at certain locations. And I understand that all the permits have been put in place for those with the government.
Yeah, so this is in particular because we're seeing lots of shore-based activities going into communities like Coverdon and so on that are servicing the oil industry, which I assume includes the Yellowtail project, and they include the use of radioactive materials. And those are, you know, the country is now learning how to deal with radioactive spills. I'm just wondering how you evaluated in your EIA that your waste management plan was great, given that there are these limitations in Guyana. And so that's the question on the boundary of the yellowtail evaluation. Another question that wasn't answered that others have asked is the waste products from the multiple wastewater treatment processes on your FPSO. Where do those waste products go?
I'll start on that one. So this is Todd. The comprehensive waste management plan that I made reference to earlier, as well as the cradle to grave study that prefaced that plan, go into the detail on all of that. The waste treatment facilities, the recycling facilities, the non-hazardous waste disposal facilities, to which each of those waste streams, or in which each of those waste streams are treated or disposed. So there's a lot of details to answer that question, and it's detailed and specific.
Yeah, could you just answer now? Are you bringing any of that waste onto shore?
Yes.
Okay, and it's probably going to the Hagsbosch landfill.
The non-hazardous waste typically goes there if it can't be recycled. Correct.
Okay, and you're also confirming that Hagsbosch is licensed for hazardous waste. And the last question.
No, ma'am, I didn't say that. Not non-hazardous. Non-hazardous.
So where's the earlier when you said it was getting waste from it would process all the waste from your facility. You said it was it's engineered for non-hazardous waste.
Non-hazardous, right?
Where's the hazardous waste going?
Hazardous waste is treated at a hazardous waste treatment facility to render it non-hazardous per Guyana regulation.
Okay, and so that I'll have two more questions. And the other question is, if the treatment of your hazardous waste at a facility, does your boundary consider that facility's operations? Because those facilities are currently trying to get EIA approval in Guyana, and again, they're being placed in residential communities or close to residential communities, and you have every single week or day public having to deal with our current EPA saying that those facilities don't require EIAs. So what is the liability or ethical responsibility that a company like ExxonMobil has, knowing that its waste is going to be processed in places that are pretty much not even having to do a full EIA? And should your EIA take a larger approach in terms of the boundaries of your operations? If you weren't pumping, we would never require that facility. You probably can't answer that one. So the last one is just whether Mr. Shamnofter or his company were compensated for any work using this EIA for yellowtail process.
Yeah, the answer to that is no, because they weren't on the EIA team.
Thank you.
You probably can't answer that one too.
Can't answer that one.
Uncle and Auntie, you guys heard them.
Yes.
1 million questions they were asked, and the answers they give, not even one they answer.
Stumbling and bumbling.
Oh my! They didn't bargain for what they would have met with Thursday evening. These are international experts.
Yes.
We're waiting on them. I want to believe they gang up on them, because you guys run around this country like Mickey Mouse, telling us anything and nothing.
Exactly.
You guys heard? I have more to give you guys on Wednesday. The lady asked them about the region and about Guyana. You can't take care of Guyana. You're going to take care of the region? Wow. And throughout, I must tell you, throughout the consultation process, all we keep hearing is that from our EPA, all your comments and contributions are noted. Yeah.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing you keep hearing at every public consultation meeting. The same thing I was told at the third project when I asked, do we have full cover insurance? The third project approved, and my concerns, my comments, and my contributions were maybe not noted. Maybe they forget to note that because there's no insurance on to now. And I did ask a question, the same question Thursday night again. Every single person that spoke talked about insurance. Did you guys hear them answer anything? More to come on Wednesday. Please stay tuned. This is more important than your life that you're living now, auntie and uncle. So please spread the message and get on this program on Wednesday to listen to the other experts and the answers that ExxonMobil, the ERM and the EPA give to Guyana. With that, a lot have been said, and maybe down the road, or if questions come in and we can answer, I will try to answer. But down the road, I have to take them bit by bit and explain in detail what transpired last Thursday night with this fourth Yellowtail project, the opposition, the government, and the EPA going to push down with truth. I tell you guys, if this project get off the ground, you wouldn't hear me back on radio. I'm off. So with that, let me say namaste again until Wednesday. You can shoot a few telephone calls as to what you would have heard, and let's try to deal with it.
Yes.
You're listening to us on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM, and this is the Glenn Lall Show. Caller, good evening to you and welcome.
Pleasant good evening to Mr. Lall and the team. Mr. Lall, I would like to confess that I was part of that listening in on the Zoom program last Thursday night.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tell Guyana, we're done. The people are not answering the questions. They don't have answers, or they may have answers, but they don't want to tell us anything, because in their heads, regardless of what is said, regardless of what is asked, regardless of what's going on, it's a done deal. They are ready in business.
Hold on the line. I disagree with you. Guyana is not done, and we have to get our fair share, brother.
I agree.
This will not be allowed to continue.
I hope
I don't think you or the Guyanese people will allow these leaders we have to go ahead with this fourth project.
Absolutely not.
Knowing the danger that faces us.
Yes.
Not a single thing is in place to protect our livelihoods and that of our future. And these people are speaking it so clearly. This is not you, my brother, or Glenn Lall, or Miss Harris, or Mr. Joshua saying this thing. You have heard them pellucid.
I totally agree.
Thank you.
I totally agree. We have a Herculean task ahead, and we must come together and fight these people. They just are ready. I'm showing bold-facedly that they don't have to answer. They ain't answering. They don't know the answers. I listened to that intently. It was interesting.
I hear you, and I want to tell you that everybody that meet me on the road tell me, Glenn Lall, we are all with you. We cannot live like this.
Nope.
We cannot have people going in a Chinese shop begging for dog food and say, please put a fork in the plastic bag, brother.
Interesting, yep.
Huh? We can't have people working for $200 and $300 a month when these people are working $500-600 a day. Come on, man.
Yes, man. I agree.
Come on.
I agree.
Come on.
But when it comes back to that session, those people were lost. The professionals had them in the middle of the hand. They
Exactly.
could do anything. They can't say anything. I mean, where is the question of the waste, the waste that they're generating on the ship? Where is that being processed? How is it being processed? What does it contain? All those questions, none were answered, and it's going to the Hague Bosch land site.
Exactly, and all those chemicals they're using is deadly chemicals, brother.
Yes, Mr. Lall, and the thing is, it's not an isolated dump site. It's right where people are living. One of the people that called in lives only a mile away from the dump site.
Yes, she said that, Miss Trotz. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's the content of these waste products, and it's a lie. Nothing is being put
Exactly. You
done
see,
on board the ship to process it, to bring it here as processed waste.
exactly. They're using radioactive materials there. When I heard that Thursday night, I was like, oh my God. And when they were asked to comment on it, the guy hesitated for a moment whether to answer that question or don't answer it. And then he said, yes, but in small quantum.
Yes.
I am like, wow.
I know.
I cannot, my brother, we should not believe a word, much less a sentence.
Yes. When it comes to radioactive waste, that's a very serious biohazard.
Yes.
They have, to dispose of hazardous waste in the United States, they put them in sealed canisters and bury them in the bottom of the sea. Where is it sealed on that vessel? Where is it buried? What happens to it? We have no knowledge. That was information that came out that's going to shock Guyana.
I hear you.
Guyana don't take it serious that we're losing so much money. They better take it serious as far as what's going down in our grounds at Hague's Bosch. They better take that serious.
Man, we got to pray for these people. We got to pray for these people. Every single one of these politicians, we got to pray for them. You hear me, brother?
I hear you, Mr.
We
Lall.
have to pray for them.
I listened to that program. I was transfixed listening to that program.
My friend.
And I can't wait for you to start bringing out the rest of excerpts on Wednesday and Friday, etc., until Guyana gets it.
A matter of fact, I will be playing this program on a daily basis.
Yes, please do.
And Wednesday program and Friday program, because I don't think I can cover the entire episode in 3 issues.
No, what, 4 hours and change?
Yes, 4.5 hours.
Yes.
And this is only the interaction with these experts with them. Their presentation, Exxon and ERM with the EPA presentation, that alone needs a few programs.
Yes.
Because they did discuss many other things that will affect Guyana, but the answers and the way they presented it, I need to expand on that, because everything is like they just wishy-washy it.
Yes, the Ventura charade is just like when this is over, it's over.
Yes,
Hurry up and let's get it over.
They tell you, well, the Ford project, when it comes to the fishing, it will impact Guyana, yes, but in a small way.
Minor and negligible?
Minor?
Tell me, how could that be minor and negligible when the species in the sea, according to when the bang goes down, when Mr. Aboud was describing, they shoot off in a straight line 50 kilometers away from where that impact happens. No, but he wasn't even trying to emphasize on the shrimp and the fish. He was just trying to emphasize on the other species, the small species in the sea that assist the sea to live. And it's not here. What is our sea becoming?
Exactly.
We are already getting fish, we are already getting shrimp. What is the sea becoming?
Exactly. He did in the EIA in the project document. They did mention about fish, but they use words like
that's
negligible.
And negligible.
Yes, we importing fish. Go in the supermarkets, you will see we importing fish.
Miami, Florida got sending in fish to us now.
My
Jamaica
friend,
sending in fish to us.
only last week, before this EIA, before this last consultation Thursday, I think it was Wednesday or Monday, I thought we are importing fish. Right?
Right. I heard that one.
And these guys telling us, no, well, it's not impacting our fish. I am not concerned about that. I am concerned about who is going to compensate our fishermen,
right?
Their families, and who's going to compensate me if I am to import fish.
Yep.
You see, these are the things. These are the things that the nation doesn't understand. All they complain about is that fish, we ain't getting fish. We ain't getting fish, and we can't do nothing.
They blame it on the moon. The moon they're in another direction, so fish now run this side.
Yes.
You know? Meanwhile, Exxon is the one that's creating this catastrophe for us.
Is the oil operation, brother?
Yes.
I did a program early, I think late last year, in which I explained the seismic operation, what it does to the fishes. So the fishes were dying out since before they start pumping oil.
Yeah.
But just that we never felt the impact.
Yeah.
It's only of recent, as they continue expanding, we're feeling it.
Yep.
And they're still trying to cover this thing up.
Yes.
One of them said Thursday night that they're collecting data from two people here and there, and they base their study on two people.
Mr. Lall, that data is false. I sat in on a data collecting process when Exxon came to the quarantine, expecting to get data as far as how many fishermen and folks in the coastline doing farming would be affected in case of an oil spill. And they're going back with 60 fishermen that got shrimps for. It is over 3,000 people here that's going to be affected. Right? And they're going back with data in the event that there is a spill. They're only catering for 60 farmers, 60 fish pond. Right? So that whole thing, when they were talking, I shake my head. I was like, what the hell he talking about? But they take data and the data, it's not accurate.
It's true. It's true.
Everything.
I sat in. Look, I'm a counselor, and I sat in on that. I sat in. I'm telling you, as first-hand witness. I sat in on that meeting, and I heard, and I was shaking my head. I said, no. Yeah. It don't work like that. We have over 3,500 people doing fishing in this area.
It's true.
My friend, everything is bogus.
Yes. I witnessed that, Mr.
I
Lall.
told you. I said.
tell this nation, I witnessed this, not just words.
I said earlier, this what Exxon is doing to us is cutting the pepper and the salt and rubbing it in our eye.
Yeah.
With our hands tied behind the back.
Yeah.
It's gangsterism going on. That has been going on for quite a while. And we have to stop them. The government is not going to stop them, and the opposition is not going to stop them. We the
have
people.
No opposition. It's us. We got to fight this.
Exactly. We the people have to stand up and show them that the power is in our hands, my friend.
Yes.
People's power is what is power. They have done it.
Guyana need to stop becoming complacent and start fighting, not for us, even if we don't see the benefits of us.
Exactly.
In our generation, our siblings, our children, our grandchildren who are younger coming up might benefit from what we need to fight for.
Exactly.
Or else we will become a failure to them in our generation.
Exactly. And what do we tell them?
Sorry.
What do we tell them? Sorry.
We didn't know better.
When you have them begging in the streets.
Yes.
Like all over Ghana and all over Africa and Asia. Do we tell them that we sat quietly and watch a few leaders fill their pockets and the children bank book all over the world?
Yes.
No.
We need to fight.
I refuse to be part of any nation.
Me too.
That sits down and allow this to happen.
Me too. We all should be like that. Don't give them the chance.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. We have
Yeah.
to stop them.
Yeah, but my brother, I want you to know, we can't hit Guyana too hard because I have said it many times, this project is new. This industry, ain't large or huge, it's gigantic. And it will take time for people to come to grips and to understand. I have been speaking to many people who thanking me almost on a daily basis. And some of them even saying prayers for me.
Yeah.
For doing what we are doing here at the Kaieteur News.
Quite deserving, Mr.
And
Lall.
I just want to say thank you guys.
Yes, sir.
I don't really say thanks to these things. Well, let me say thanks tonight. But they are waking up. People all over in the States calling me.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, 2 lawyers called me from the States today.
Yeah.
Right? They're ready to join in the fight. And people are waking up.
Yes.
So this 4th project, put your pot on fire, ain't going on, ain't going through.
But Mr. Lall, you know these people are already ordering the 4th FPSO, or is it the 6th one?
Well, we carried
it didn't even pass yet. It didn't even complete discussion yet, and they're done negotiating for the FPSO to be fabricated.
Exactly. We carried that story a few days ago. It was a writer's story, and we carried it in the newspaper a few weeks ago.
Guyana needs to know these things and see the impasse we going through.
Yes.
It's like you see the bandits putting on the tope and putting the guns in the race and call the car to come to your house. You're seeing that from where you live.
And then doing nothing about it.
And you ain't doing
Waiting
nothing.
to be robbed.
Yes.
Waiting to be murdered in the process.
Yeah, like lambs to the slaughter.
Yes,
It's
like lambs to the
lining
slaughter.
up.
Indeed.
My brother, we are not going to the slaughterhouse like lambs. Trust me on that one. Trust me, I'm not going like that.
Count me in, Mr. Lall. I am there.
Definitely fine.
Big time support. This gotta stop.
Yes.
I would like to be a part of this stopping.
Thank you. You can come. You can join us on Wednesday. Come.
Of course, every time I listen to this program, I'm not calling all the time, but I do call it when I know it's absolutely necessary. As I said earlier, I was witness to that Zoom program. I was on it, one of the 76 people that was listening, and that's only 76 people out of this entire country where most don't know, and is now that you're having this program, bringing it out piece by piece for the rest of the nation to hear what we 75 people plus ourselves learned and heard.
Exactly. It's my obligation.
Yes.
It's my obligation to this nation. They have to know. They must know every bit, everything I see. You know, a matter of fact, I wasn't going to sit down to watch that program, and one of my staff said, "Boss, please look at it." And I turned on the computer, and we began looking at it.
Well, I was glad when I saw that you were on it and I heard you. I was like, okay, this is the man that needs to be on this program.
Yes, I asked, you would have heard I asked the question about insurance again.
Yeah. Everybody was interested in insurance.
Yes.
It is such a serious, interesting topic that we don't have insurance. That alone is a whole topic to change. Indeed, yes. I heard it.
Yeah, man. Let's stay in touch.
Yes, we will. I'll be there.
You got my number. My number is on every lantern post, man. Call me.
I saw it on a certain chat group that I'm on when you mentioned something yesterday.
Yes, call me, man. I'm there.
622, 625 or 625?
624 6456.
6456.
Put it on every lantern post. Message me. If I don't respond, hey, I got a lot.
Respond eventually. If you don't respond, you will respond eventually.
Right. Ring the phone. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Good night. Wow.
People are understanding it.
Yes, they're waking up, man. You know, Gary from Trinidad, he asked at the end of his second presentation, he asked the EPA to say, guys, this thing should be extended.
Yes, I asked.
And I felt good when I heard the EPA say, well, okay, we will discuss it and we will get back to you. But I would love I would love, this nation would love to have ExxonMobil and ERM answer those questions. They have to be answered and answered publicly. We don't want no answers in writing. We must be able to listen to their answers. It speaks volume of how they stutter and how they present themselves. I could have picked up every line, how they're lying, answering those questions.
It's very obvious. They weren't prepared to answer the questions or the level of the questions that people were asking.
Yeah. Josh, we have 4 minutes more. Yes, everything. Good night, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. You're live on here.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I listened to the program, and that program, it's so touching to know that the Guyanese people are so educated for what they're doing. They met the so-called leaders in that country. It put them to a shame to when they listened to that program and they could understand that people are asking, they wanted to educate people. But when you educate people, they must remember that people are going to ask them questions that so satisfying that they of themselves cannot apply to it. Because the guys the people are asking them a question and they cannot answer. What kind of thing is going on in the country? What kind of thing is going on in the country? It is so terrible. And Mr. Glenn Lall is doing a good job. Let him continue to push this program. I listen to this. I listen to news actually every day. I'm in Barbados here, and I am following this program.
Okay.
Because
from Barbados?
Yeah, I'm calling from Barbados. I'm a Guyanese. I'm living in Barbados, and I listen to this program.
Share the programs.
Yeah, man. And I normally send it around to my folks, them, some of my Guyanese colleagues, and let they look and they listen.
Let them also know, not because they're living overseas, they're excluded from this danger we're in. Their relatives and future generations are all tied.
I am so much attached. I am so much, and the worthlessness. I think that they shouldn't even call them leaders. These guys should be called pipers. Pipers. That is blowing the little pipe and having people to follow. But people are not following them now. And I like what I heard from the lady of Canada there, the two ladies, and the guy from Trinidad.
Yeah.
Wow.
You would hear the American and you would hear the Jamaican Wednesday.
Yes.
Listen, something got to happen. You know, I'm sorry that Guyana don't have a call to recall these so-called guys that said they are leaders. These guys love Guyanese. They are Guyanese, no? The leaders, they are Guyanese.
You wouldn't think.
You want to hear a little more? Try getting a lawyer. Try getting a lawyer to take all these ills, wrongs, and wrong things they did to this country with this contract. To take them to court, you can't get none.
I would like to ask a question. These guys, I'm asking if they are the chief crime leaders in that country. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's a fair question.
Because the little petty crime that's going on in Guyana, people should not worry with.
Exactly. Exactly. We have so much money, my friend. I explained it. I explained it with that 10 billion with Lisa 1 and 2 that Jack David didn't check. Oh my, that thing could have double people's salary, bro.
And the thing is, the toxic material that is coming out, like these guys sign on to kill Guyanese too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, these things are going to make deformed people. Because Guyana still need hundreds of thousands of more people. So if you are pushing out a lot of toxic material and you are bringing it to shore on the land, what are you going to do to people? People have to think about these things too.
It filters. It filters into the water system of the country.
I am telling you.
You can't bury that on our land, brother. You hear one gentleman say you have to put it in sealed container and bury it at the bottom of the ocean. Not on our land. When that seep through, that's going into the water that we have to depend on, that we have to drink, that we have to cook, we have to live with.
Into our soil.
As the guy that asked the question, if these people have any daughters and sons they would like to, I mean, the president has a son. I don't know if he have any more children. What he thinks about his future?
I think that question was asked to all the leaders, not only the government leaders. It was asked to ExxonMobil people there.
Their family lives there? Their family lives there?
I don't know. I would not be able to tell you that. But
they're not going to live here when they're doing that to themselves?
But I did ask one of the ExxonMobil people one day, if you guys don't have shame, and to give us 2%. And the individual said, Glenn, ask your leaders if they don't have shame to sign on to 2%.
That is the question I'm asking, if they're Guyanese. They change their nationality.
Well, I know most of them got American and Canadian passports.
Well, that is why I'm going to say this now to you. What the people should vote for. Any potential politician has 2 passports. We don't want you.
I fully agree with you.
We don't want you because you are going to you're going to continue to thief our money and carry it overseas.
Well, they did that. They did that.
Jobs for people overseas.
Exactly.
That is why the Guyanese have to do crime. The police doing crime, the soldiers doing crime. Why you think they are doing crime? It's because you are the chief. They are the chief people in doing crime.
Yes.
And it's only filtered down.
Yeah. I wish
Mr. Glenn, I wish you all the best, and
Thank
may
you.
God continue to give you strength,
Thank you.
knowledge, and wisdom, and continue to host this program. And during the course of the day, I listen to the news on the hour, off the hour. Wonderful.
Thank you. Have a good evening, and God bless.
You too, my brother.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
I wish I can. I remember the slogan in which it said, the petty thieves and the political thieves. We elect the political thieves for thief from us. All right, it's 5 after 9, and they're showing me some signs to get off the radio. So
We'll continue.
a lot would have said tonight. I hope you guys would have captured, and you have enough to think about until Wednesday.
Plenty.
Do have a great evening, and God bless you guys, and God bless Guyana too.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.